Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. This town hall will be focused on discussing the proposed 2025-26 budget for Arkport. I did put some comment into the chat, and I just remind everybody at any point, if you want to put a question into the comments, I'll be able to see that. I'll get to all of them. If I can't get to it right away, I'll make sure I get to it at the end. So we are going to jump right in. I also put a link to the presentation we're going to be going through. This will be slightly different than our May 13th budget presentation. There are certain things that the state asks us to go through during that time. And what I wanted to do tonight was offer a simplified version of that. The way the state asks us to present to the budget isn't necessarily intuitive, and the presentation tonight is just more straightforward and I think more easily understood. So that link, you can use that at any point to come back to this. And again, jump in with any questions you have, just throw them into the comments section. All right. So looking through, we talk about our sections here, but the first place that I really want to focus right now is our budget forecast. There are a couple big things that are really dominating the building of our budget this year. Healthcare being first and foremost. We had over the course of the last couple of years, healthcare costs have risen by 75%. In the last 2 years, that's $484,000. That is the number one driver of costs in our district. And that is, we are not unique. That is happening everywhere. We are going to be getting a 2% increase in state aid. That is the minimum. That is driven by student population. And as you can see, we've been holding pretty steady in the 400s, but that number has been dropping. And that's more due to in-district students. We are graduating, last couple of years, we've graduated high 30s or low 40s for a class size for seniors. And our incoming kindergarten classes are the mid to high 20s. And that is just a demographic shift. So that affects our state aid. And last, one of the other factors is that we had a tax cap, allowable tax cap of 3.5%, and the board decided to go to 2.5%, which is a little higher than we normally do, around the twos, and that was in recognition of everything that's going on with our budget. So that's the general budget forecast. And then it's over. I skipped something. There we go. All right. Breaking down the budget sections, the 5 main categories of any school budget. General support, that is, actually, let me start with what makes most sense. Instruction. That is our largest section of the budget. That is for the coming school year, $7.2 million. Instruction is what makes sense. It's teachers. It's our special education program. It is our CTE program, our students going to Wildwood. It is the support services. That would be our counselors, our social worker, our school psychologist, our aides in the classroom. That is all instruction. General support is another section of the budget, and that's everything that goes into supporting the school. That is our maintenance staff. That is our administration. That is our office staff. That is our insurance. That is general support. Transportation. I don't need to explain what transportation is. It is our busing and how we get our kids to and from school. The fourth section would be employee benefits. That would be our retirement system, our health care. That would be all the federal taxes that we have to pay. That's employee benefits. And the last one was debt service. That is all the costs associated with our building projects. So the 5 main categories. And what we tried to do in this budget is limit the increases outside of instruction and employee benefits, where we do not have much control, as I discussed before, regarding health insurance. So the big changes you will see are instruction is going up by $435,000. Employee benefits is going up by $450,000. And we'll get to transportation. There's a big increase there, but it's offset by another source of revenue, and that's associated with our buses. So if we look at general support, again, that's everything that helps run the school outside of the classroom. You can see the biggest changes in that being legal services. We've increased our legal services and our support through BOCES. Salaries increased, and then you can see some minor increases. So not too much of a change in general support. And then we will go on to instruction. The biggest change in instruction for the coming school year is the costs associated with our special education tuition. So these are costs associated with students going to programs outside of the school district. And let me explain that briefly. We try our best to create programs that allow our students to stay in the district. But depending on the needs of the students, sometimes we do not have the support in teaching or the facilities necessary to keep our students in district. It is not the best place for them academically, socially, and so that's when we have to send students out to other programs. And one student's tuition can change a budget by over $100,000. And that is just the reality of it. That is what we need to do for that student. That is what is appropriate. But we've had some major shifts. So you can see that change in tuition of around $300,000 for next year. That's the biggest change for our instructional budget next year. Going over to transportation, we are purchasing, we always purchase buses. For the last couple of years, we've leased buses, which made sense when interest levels were lower. And that purchase of bus, we're just accounting for it differently. And that $340,000 is the cost associated with the purchase of 2 buses. And that is offset by money coming out of our reserve account. So that looks like a big jump on the expense side, but it's offset by an equal amount coming out of our reserves. And every year at the end of the school year, if our planning is correct, we have money that we can put into our reserve accounts so that we don't, and a bus reserve is one of those. And it just makes it so that we do not have to raise taxes to cover those costs. We can save a little bit of it at a time and use those reserves to purchase things like buses. So that's a big change, but it's offset by an equal change on the revenue side. I'll remind everybody, at any point you have a question, do not hesitate to put it in the comments and I will answer it to the best of my ability. Next up, employee benefits. Again, the biggest change, I'm going to keep saying it, and I feel like a broken record because it's the only thing I've been saying for the last couple of years. The biggest driver in employee benefits is health insurance. So we have a $400,000 increase, approximately a 30% increase in the costs associated with health insurance. And the district, along with the other districts in our healthcare consortium, we're working on ways of finding savings. And I am confident that there will be, that we will not be looking at a 30% increase next year, but this is what we have this year. And when we get to the revenue side, we'll talk about how we are offsetting some of those costs, but that is a 30% increase in health insurance. Debt service, it is an overall decrease, and that is just based on shifting costs for interest and principal related to our projects. Those are planned. We know they're coming. Debt service is really, it's one of the things that we do have long-term planning on. Our most recent project, which was voted on in 2019, we know the payment of principal interest for the next 15 years. So there's anything that happens in the debt service budget, the district is well aware of in advance. So now those were the expense sides. So to review, the big drivers are the programs for special education students in the instruction side and health insurance costs and employee benefits. So what are we doing on the revenue side? Because we are looking at over $1 million increase in our expenses. We have a balanced budget and we need to show that. So what does that mean for the revenues? On this sheet, we do have a decrease in building aid, but that was one of those things I was talking about in debt service where we knew that was coming. We decreased our appropriated fund balance, which is a positive thing. We are not relying on money at the end of the school year to help support next year's budget. That decrease of $100,000 was planned. A little decrease in BOCES aids and a few other things. Really what we're looking at in increases are state aid, property taxes, and the largest one at the bottom is, it's a category called compensation for loss and payment for claims. What that large increase of $468,000 represents, the majority of that is associated in money that we are receiving from our healthcare consortium to offset the increased costs in health insurance this year. Our healthcare consortium has reserves. We are spending those down in a planned fashion. So as a district, we received around $390,000. It did what it was supposed to do this year. It plugged that hole. We will receive a payment from the Health and Care Consortium for the next 2 years as well. It will be less next year, and then it will be less the following year. So we already know that we're going to have to plug another approximately $100,000 next year, but it also helps with the increases. So when we look at that $400,000 increase in health insurance, on one hand, it is offset by the healthcare consortium giving us a rebate. So that really did help us balance our budget this year. Next up, we have the property tax increase. So if we are projecting with a 2.5 increase that the average tax rate across all of our townships, we have 6, will be up, this is the average, $17.05. So on a $100,000 home, what does that change to $17.05? That's about a 15-cent increase on average. Somebody with enhanced star would see a year increase of $48. Somebody with basic star, $88. And households with no star would see an increase of $103. So those are your average, and that's based on a $100,000 home. Our average home value in the district is somewhere around $75,000, but we give $100,000 because it's just an easy number to work with. One of the big things that is in this presentation is how did we balance the budget? And these 2 pages really go through all of the different things that as a district, as an administration, as a board of education, we worked on to really get the budget to a place where we're maintaining programs, but also being aware of what goes into doing that. So we had to do, when we look at all of the decreases, which goes to the healthcare surplus, program savings, which is just a change in some of the programs we offer, where we that happens on a year-to-year basis based on student needs. We have some BOCES services that we are not going to be using, all the way down to saving $4,000 on Clay Target savings that we don't need to buy as much ammunition next year. So we looked at everything that we could save expenses on. And then going over to how did we generate revenue? Well, we do have the, because the board decided to stay under the tax cap of 3.5 at 2.5, which was absolutely the right call. We are going to use some of our debt service, which is a reserve fund, to help offset that difference. That's $59,000. And then you can see the health insurance rebate there as well. So all in all, with the decreases, with the increased revenue, the Board of Education administration, the total budget changes were $786,000. And I really want to thank everybody that had a hand in this, because we looked under every single stone for savings. And there were some changes and some sacrifices. We're bringing back some BOCES programs that we haven't had in a couple of years. We're going to do them in-house. And it was really a team, the teamwork really made this happen. And I just want to thank everybody else, everybody again, for the work they did to balance this budget. So then, what's our voting information? Like, what are the propositions? So when you come to vote, there are going to be 5 propositions for the district, and then one other one, and I'll explain that one. So first, there is going to be a proposition for approval of the budget. There will be 1 Board of Education seat open, and we have 2 people running. That would be Michelle Chamberlain and Tim Bailey for that open seat. We have a bus purchase, and student transportation approval. That would be for 2 buses and 1 student vehicle for transportation, not to exceed $420,000. We have a proposition for use of our equipment reserve, and that will help us purchase a maintenance vehicle. And then we also have a technology reserve approval of $50,000, which will help us continue to purchase the needed technology for our faculty, staff, and students. Those are the 5 for the district. There will also be a proposition for our public library. And the public library will have a table set up during our budget vote. If you have any questions, they'll be available to answer them. Moving forward with our voting information, we do have the official budget hearing. That would be May 13th at 6 p.m. And that will be where we've been holding our meetings lately, in the Flex Room. So you can find all these documents online. I put the link to the presentation from today in the chat. I will, once this meeting comes to a close, I'll hang on a second. I will go and get the link to our budget page, and I'll put it in the chat as well. We are voting May 20th, from 11 to 8 p.m. in the small gym. And at any point, if you want a more detailed copy of the budget, anytime after May 6th, up to May 20th, you can come to the school and ask to see a more detailed copy, and those will be available for you. And if you would like to request a absentee ballot, the requests need to be in by May 13th. And I think that is all for the presentation. So I'll jump back to the beginning. I will give anybody a chance to ask questions. And while I am giving everybody that chance, I'm going to jump out of the picture. I will still be here to answer, but what I'm going to do is go get that link to our webpage where there's more budget information so that if you want to go look, you can find that. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. And don't hesitate to reach out to the district if you do have any questions coming up. But if not, if there are no questions, thank you again and have a great night.